People are having a lot of fun getting creative with ways to test new models. This one I call the PyGame test because when you input this prompt, which is write a Python program that shows a ball bouncing inside a spinning hexagon. The ball should be affected by gravity and friction, and it must bounce off the rotating walls realistically. It will go through and it will run and reason that it needs to start with a Python library called PyGame. Now, I went ahead and did this. This is going to be our baseline test because what we're trying to do, and I think it's really interesting that people are comparing models one against the other, but I don't think that's a really a fair comparison. I think the way these LLMs are being trained and utilized have different use cases. It's like the right tool for the right job. But if we start with like a foundation model and then we compare against these different IDEs with their coding assistants and agents, I think this would be an interesting test. So here I have GitHub CoPilot, Cursor AI, Codeium Windsurf comparisons of why you would use each one or what the interesting features are. Now, I personally am a Codeium Windsurf user. I started out with CoPilot, then Cursor, and now I'm at Windsurf because of this right here. This context awareness when I'm working on larger projects is incredibly important, project-wide. Now, Cursor does have this too, but there's also this element of what's called like Riptide search within Windsurf that has a really great retrieval process. And sometimes it's just about using a product and having a great user experience for you to actually like it. Now, I will say full disclosure that I work for a company that is partnered with Codeium Windsurf, but my utilization of it was prior. And what I'm doing here is going to be just using all the free tiers out there to run this comparison test. So we'll just see the results in real time, and I'm just going to show you objectively what happens. So I went ahead and ran in Claude as our kind of like our baseline comparison. And the one thing that is annoying kind of because all these different base models I'm using for like Windsurf and whatnot is going to be 3.5 Sonnet there. Pull up Cursor and we'll go ahead and we'll use 3.5 Sonnet there. And in here, we are also using 3.5 Sonnet. So I would like a actual comparison, but the fact of the matter is I'm not going to pay Claude because I have too many other resources or Anthropic and whatnot. So anyway, we got this output here. And because Windsurf is my IDE of choice, I went ahead and all I did was copy and paste, no alterations whatsoever. Went ahead, installed the libraries and launched my Conda environment. And now we're just going to see what it looks like here. I have over here, everything I'm SSHing into the machine behind me. So we're going to do change directory, IDE tests to get to the folder, Conda activate PyGame, because this is our environment with all the libraries. And then we're going to go ahead and run, I named it Claude PY to see what we got. And here it is. Not much. I mean, just baseline 3.7. Would like a little bounce, but it is staying within the hexagon. It's got some realistic physics in there, and it's pretty cool. So if I go back here, you're going to see different flavors of elements. And I only know this again because I've ran it kind of the similar comparison that this person did. Where did that window go? Of Grok 3, O3 Mini, 3.5 Sonnet. Like my Grok 3 actually, even with just this prompt, had a much better result. So I don't know what happened there. But that's all I did. And we're going to go ahead and close this. And let's go ahead and start with, what do we got up here? Cursor. And let's see how we have it. Okay. So I do have the prompt over here. So we're going to copy. And then we're going to go ahead and paste it. Somehow, what is happening? Copy. It's going to make me write it. Okay, for some reason, it's not letting me paste it. Write up a Python program that shows a ball bouncing inside a spinning hexagon. The ball should be affected by gravity and friction, and it must bounce off the rotating walls realistically. Let her run. And in the meantime, we need to start a new file. And it's going to be a Python file. Okay. So this is telling me these are the requirements, PyGame and NumPy. And now it's going to be generating the code. And again, we are using 3.5 Sonnet. And look, it actually created a requirements text for me, but we should be good to go. You can see PyGame, NumPy, and Math. Those are the same libraries. So within my Conda environment, I've already got those installed. It's saying first install the requirements with the requirements text, which is pretty cool. Oh, and it's already creating me my file, which I'm going to rename cursor. And again, it's a lot of similarities. Going to initiate PyGame. It's got gravity, weight. Let's check out Claude comparison. White, black, red, different colors and whatnot. And then now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to save this file. We're going to go back over here. And let's initiate this one. Python cursor.py. Okay, not great. Let's go ahead and start that one again. Python cursor.py. Now, the one thing that is interesting is we're using an older model. It shouldn't be that crazy of a difference, but I wouldn't say the output's great. Okay, so cursor, not a great showing. Let's go ahead and let's go to GitHub CoPilot. And let's hope I can just copy and paste this in here. We don't care about a posted image. I hate when it does that. And hit enter. Now I believe, yeah, I should be, okay. 3 for all clients, enable access, enable. Okay, just want to make sure I'm in the right file. Again, this is why I call the PyGame test, PyGame Math, NumPy. It's interesting that cursor itself went ahead, created the requirements text and the actual file. Here, it will be a manual process, but that is completely fine with me. We'll do new file, Python file. And I believe it's done. We should be able to copy and then paste. That should be it. So file save, an IDE test, and we will call this the CoPilot version. Hop over here, and now we have CoPilot. So Python copilot.py. I mean, that's not bad. So with GitHub CoPilot and 3.5 is the foundation model, we're seeing similar type of performance as we did with just 3.7 out of the box. A little faster, but if we go here, I mean, there's going to be rotational speed. You can see here listed and defined. So it's just different up here. 0.02. I'd be interested to see what Claude did. So what did it call it by chance? Bouncing ball, spinning hexagon, gravity, friction, restitution, bounciness factor. That's interesting. And I don't see rotational speed. What if I just speed? Okay, there it is. Hex rotation speed. Where's it defined? Okay, yeah, you can see here 0.005 versus 0.02. So you can, of course, go in there and make adjustments, but that's cool. For me, that did a pretty good job, just a little faster. Now let's go back and finally, let's see what my preferred looks like. We're going to copy, paste. It's going to make me, I hate when it does that. Okay. It's going to make me write it out again. Write a Python program that shows a ball bouncing inside a spinning hexagon. The ball should be affected by gravity and friction. Those are key points you see defined in the script. Must bounce off the rotating walls realistically. And off and running we go. Interactive animation, let me propose a solution. The one thing I did notice with Windsurf, it has a more casual and informal feel when you're quote unquote talking to their agent. Now it is trying to propose edits to the Claude model, which I don't want to do. I want a comparison one. And if we scroll down, PyGame and NumPy. So no math library. Interesting. Let me see. Did it import one? Oh, it actually did. Okay, so you can see it's using similar libraries. But I don't want to. I just want to copy file, new file, give me a Python file. We're going to paste, and then we're going to save. What shall we save it as? Let's save it as Windsurf. I propose to complete. We'll go through like the outputs later. Let's just see what we got here. Go over here. I'm not sure what's in that. Okay. So Python, I called it Windsurf. I mean, that's pretty good. Initial bounciness factor, kind of a medium rotation in between what Claude 3.7 put out versus what Cursor put out. Or CoPilot, I think it was CoPilot. So what do we get here for rotational speed? Oh, so it was kind of the same actually. So never mind. It was the same. So now if we run them, I have to open up a bunch of different windows here. New window. New window. Let's see what we got as far as comparison. So over here, we want to kind of activate what I call PyGame, change directory, IDE, tests. First one, we'll do Python, Claude, PY, much bigger ball. So that's 3.7. Let's then activate PyGame, change directory, IDE, test, and then Python, what was the other one? Cursor, PY. Not good. That is gone. And then lastly, Python, CoPilot. So I would say that CoPilot and Windsurf by far the best. You can of course make adjustments to the code. I got to relaunch this one because ball's gone. I just can't keep it on screen long enough for it to be a comparison, but you can see it just fall off. So for me, these two IDEs are really good. But let's go into more of the differences. Like, why would you use one or the other? Why do I like, personally, Cascade? So pricing, of course, is going to be one thing. You can see here, free. And by the way, this was all of these results were with the free versions of each of these IDEs, which is pretty cool because you get a certain limit of inputs and outputs. But you can see here, free versus pro, business, $20 a month, $40 a month for Cursor, Windsurf, $15 a month and whatnot. And then GitHub CoPilot. I think just because it's just a massive company, just with the foundation of Microsoft, they're going to undercut a little bit. But again, it's this. But there's also another thing that's important to note. So integration, VS Code, JetBrains, and Visual Studio. Codeium Windsurf does have certain extensions, but you can't use things like Cascade, I believe, in there. So it's preferential to use Windsurf as your IDE. But it looks to me, if I go back over here, it looks just like, you can set it up just look like VS Code. But of course, you got to install your extensions and whatnot, and you got to troubleshoot some things. But once you get settled in, as anybody knows that's got their preferred environment, then you're pretty well set. But here, this is the agents. These are the assistants and agents that I think are great. Project-wide cascade. Let's take a look at like the different results that we got from each one. So if we start as our baseline over here, you're going to see a really great output. And remember, this was 3.7 versus 3.5. So with the addition of the different coding agents and assistants and whatnot in the different IDEs, we got better results than we did with the newer and more powerful model. So when you add this as the foundation within those different assistants and agents, you also theoretically should get a better output. And that's something I experienced. 3.7 Claude, fantastic coding assistant. But you get all this different output. And they also have Claude Code, which I didn't compare because, again, trying to make it a baseline foundation model comparison. So we go here. What are we? We're in VS Code. We see an output, write a Python program that shows a ball bouncing inside a spinning hexagon, yada, yada. And then I'll help you create it. And it was just a simple, okay. And then here's the results. And here's kind of an explanation of the simulation and why it did what it did. Now, the one thing that, like, we're looking at cursor here. Now, the one thing that, you know, even though it performed poorly over here, the one thing I did like was the fact that it created the requirements text, which for something like this, I mean, there's only a few libraries that need to be installed, not that big a deal. But if you're doing something, a much larger project, and you've got a ton of Python libraries, the ability just to have that so you can do pip install requirements text is much better than having to manually type it out, which is what I did when I set it up. For this, not a big deal, just really nice. Plus, it created the Python file, whereas the other different ones, I actually had to create the Python file myself and then copy paste. Personally, I don't think that's big of a deal because with these coding assistants and agents, you really need to check everything. You want to make sure there's no security vulnerabilities, that it's doing everything that it's supposed to. So yes, for the fact that Cursor is laying it out, telling you what to do as far as installing the Python libraries and whatnot, it's great for someone who is starting their development journey and for this kind of low code, no code future and vibe coding and everything else people are talking about. So it's nice that it did that. To me, not that big a deal, but you can see the different explanations and defining everything. Pretty cool. And then lastly, my preferred, Windsurf. Now, the one thing to note is that this isn't everything that Windsurf and like Cascade is good for. Like the whole point, and not to sell it on it too much, was the project-wide cascade awareness, where that if you're making a change within a code, like if you were doing something in here and it's referencing other Python notebooks and libraries and whatnot, or sorry, something else within the repository, that it's going to make suggested changes as well. Plus the ability to read documentation and whatnot is super fascinating. It didn't need to do that for this, the simplicity of the test, but we can see here, sets up game with physics constants for, and it tells you exactly all the different properties and speeds that you should be looking for, creates a ball class, handles position, velocity, implements collision detection, which is important, obviously, and then the main game loop that rotates the hexagon continuously, updates ball physics and whatnot. And then it does tell you pip install, so you can just copy that down into your terminal. So really fun tests. I can probably share kind of this matrix. They're all really great. If we go back here and we look at it minus the result we got for I don't know what happened with you, Cursor. I'm so sorry. Like, I don't want to make any changes. Yes, if you're using a coding assistant, you should definitely go in there because the foundation of it is fine. Like, you can build out what you would need to make a really great simulation from what they showed, but that wasn't the point of the test. The point of the test was use the same models, test them out, and you definitely got some twins down here. Claude 3.7 just out of the box did not perform as well. So really cool. I think what it comes down to is your preference, and this output was a fun test. I'm not saying this is something to draw conclusions on, but for me, it did verify why I like Windsurf